Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome again to the Stoner Report. I'm Marius Stoner here at 307 West Hastings, Cannabis Culture Headquarters, and the BCMP Vapor Lounge to give you this week's cannabis news. It's actually nice and sunny today in Vancouver and a little bit warm, so things are always changing here. It was pouring yesterday. We had a storm. Things were rattling around. There was like tons and tons of power outages all over the Pacific mainland. But now we're sunny. That's the Vancouver weather for you. So as you notice, we have our little Festivus tree. No, it's not really a Festivus tree. It's a Christmas tree, I guess, or a Halloween tree or an Easter tree. I'm not sure about these things. I don't really follow holidays. But yeah, it has nothing to do with pot, but it's our background. No, Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy Holidays, everybody, and all that stuff. So we got lots of news, actually. I printed these out twice by accident because the printer told me it was broken the first time. So I'm going to read them twice. No, I'm only going to read them once, but there's still a lot of news anyway. So without further ado, I'll get to it. Health Canada's medical marijuana ad restrictions come off as hypocritical with $5 million anti-pot campaign. $5 million, that is. Canada's collection of medicinal marijuana growers have been warned not to promote the positive aspects of their product, a warning issued by the same government agency that recently spent $5 million on an advertising campaign attacking the use of pot. The juxtaposition shines a bright light on the strange relationship Canada has with marijuana, which has been identified as a legitimate medicinal option but is still castigated and politicized by government agencies. What has broken out is a he said, she said situation over the benefits and dangers of marijuana. And it is a battle Health Canada can't lose, considering it is positioned to regulate who can say what. Health Canada issued a warning to licensed medicinal marijuana growers this week, laying out strict ground rules about how they can promote their product and what health claims they can make. Of course, you can read all these stories in full on our front page, Cannabis Culture, and for the later ones, you can click more on the bottom. Same with our Pot TV broadcasts. Medical marijuana dispensaries make history. History was made today, I believe that was Tuesday, at the largest ever gathering of Canadian cannabis dispensary operators in Vancouver. The Canadian Association of Medicinal Dispensaries, CAMCD, hosted a symposium today at the UBC downtown campus on Robson. Over 24 cannabis dispensaries were represented at the event. The event covered dispensary standards and the CMACD certification process, as well as including discussion about how the legal status of dispensaries and various court cases relating to medical cannabis in Canada. Canadian cannabis dispensaries operate in a gray area of the law. There's no legislation which allows dispensaries to operate. But there are currently over 50 operating in Vancouver and another 24 operating across the country. CAMCD is a non-profit society formed by the cannabis dispensary operators from across Canada, created to set standards and protocols for dispensaries, and act as a certification body to ensure a high standard of patient care and promotion of best practices. This is an historic event, said Dana Larson, Vice President of CAMCD. The cannabis dispensary movement is stronger than ever and growing quickly all across the country. Our goal is to ensure that dispensaries are maintaining a high standard of patient care and acting as responsible members of their community. 420 marijuana protest returns to Vancouver Art Gallery in 2015. Vancouver 420, the massive pot protest rally held downtown every April 20th, will return to Vancouver Art Gallery in 2015. Organizers of the event met with city officials this morning to discuss details of the annual protest and were informed that construction on the art gallery grounds previously scheduled for April, which would have forced a venue change, have been postponed. This will allow protesters to use the space in the same way they have in the previous years. The news comes as a relief to 420 organizers who are beginning to get nervous about finding a suitable replacement venue. Creative stoners working for Vancouver's Prince of Pot Mark Emery came up with a concept of an all-day 420 celebration based on the concept of International Marijuana Smoking Time 420. The celebration has grown to include a stage with live musical acts and activist speakers, and an open-to-all marijuana farmers market with more than 200 vendors selling a rainbow of cannabis strains and products. Asked about marijuana, Paul says, "I made mistakes." Kentucky Senator Rand Paul hinted at an interview Friday that he smoked marijuana in his youth, adding that voters should not confuse his push for reduced criminal penalties for drug offenses as an endorsement of drug use. Paul, who announced plans this week to seek re-election to the Senate in 2016 and is actively exploring whether to run for president, said he wasn't a choir boy when asked by Louisville television station WHAS if he had used marijuana while in college. "Let's just say I wasn't a choir boy when I was in college and that I can recognize that kids make mistakes. I can say that I made mistakes when I was a kid," Paul said in an interview broadcast Friday night. "I think drugs, marijuana included, aren't good for you," Paul said. "I don't want to be someone who is seen as being this person advocating for drug use. I think they are not a good idea." He added. He said that he made mistakes when he was in college. I believe that he was trying to insert the joint in the wrong orifice and possibly the wrong way. I'm not sure which one he ended up enjoying, but whatever it was a mistake. So, yeah, some people just don't know how to smoke marijuana properly, I guess. The other thing is that, I hate to burst your bubble there, but marijuana is good for you. If it wasn't, it could not possibly conceivably be used medicinally in its raw form by millions of people who report that it helps them. So, Mr. Paul, maybe you ought to get with the facts if you still want people to believe in you. Not that I'm much for libertarianism myself. It just seems to lead to a bunch of people being wealthy and having everybody enslaved under them. And they're free to do so. So that's not really my idea of a perfect society either. I'm more of a socialist. But then, who cares what I think? Tacoma is closer to shutting down medical marijuana collectives. All medical marijuana collectives in Tacoma could soon have to shut down. City leaders addressed plans last week to send out letters to cease operations as early as January, as they are not licensed under the Initiative 502. Both business owners and patients are now expressing concerns. From its name to the signature green cross donned on its signs, it isn't hard to figure out what's inside Ancient Holistic Remedies in Tacoma. "This is our apothecary," said owner Kimberly Braga. "It's our traditional Eastern apothecary, and we do have cannabis." Richard and Kimberly Braga opened up their business in 2012 in honor of Kimberly's dad, who died of cancer. His treatment of choice was marijuana. They now serve people like Susan Fairchild, who have turned to cannabis for healing. "There are days I could not cut hair if I didn't have this to rub on my feet, my joints and my hands, because I have severe arthritis," said Fairchild. However, Ancient Holistic Remedies and an estimated 50 other collectives could soon be forced to close its doors. The Tacoma City Council revealed a plan to shut down unregulated pot shops in the start of the new year. Da 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 da. Not good. San Francisco medical marijuana clubs fund gun buyback event. And this is happening tomorrow, Saturday. So if you have a gun, sell it. What's the point? All you can do is kill people with it. San Francisco's cannabis businesses want illegal guns off the streets, and they're willing to pay for it. A gun buyback in south of Market this weekend, on the second anniversary of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting massacre in Connecticut, is being underwritten by 3 medical marijuana dispensaries and a prominent marijuana attorney. South of Market Dispensaries, the Green Door, and Barbary Coast, Tenderloin area grassroots and law firm Hallinan contributed $35,000 to provide the funds necessary to buy back the illegal firearms, attorney Brendan Hallinan said Monday. It's giving back a little to law enforcement, contributing to public safety, Hallinan said, and pot clubs are often accused of creating crime, of causing robberies. We want to counter that a little bit. The buyback is from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Saturday at Nonviolence Advocates United Playas, 1038 Howard Street. I'll say that again. Nonviolence Advocates United Playas, 1038 Howard Street. Anyone turning in a handgun will receive $100. Assault weapons will fetch $200. All guns accepted, no questions asked by law enforcement. I wonder how much you'd get for a rocket launcher. Okay, it's 2:22 now, and my alarm is not set to go weep, 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 so I'll do it. Weep, weep, weep. Okay, I won't do that again. And I guess it's time for me to roll a joint. So, how is everybody out there? Last week's show I did do, but did not come out live. So sad for that. Can you guys hear me and everything okay? Everything's cool? Hello? Hello? Okay, I assume everything's okay. Here's some of the weed I'm going to smoke. Some kind of kush again. Yeah. There we are. Yeah. Something like there. That's it. So it's some kind of nice kush I got from my friends. Yeah, so I urge you all at this point to roll up some weed or fill up your bongs, or there's always people who like different ways of doing things. A lot of people are heavily into the shatter. Heard some rumors that too much concentrates can just sort of put you into a bland mode and kind of zombie-ish, but that's just a rumor. I haven't actually talked to anybody who's like that personally, at least not that closely. So yeah, it's a big week. I'm going to get to the big news later on, which is obviously the congressional spending bill, in which they said they weren't going to go after any more medical marijuana collectives. However, they were going to try to overturn the DC law, but that's coming up soon. And I heard no mention of Colorado, Washington, Alaska, or Oregon, and what they might have to say about recreational in that bill, which is, I guess, not too odd. I'm sure eventually that information will be forthcoming once they collate. All right, sorry for that pause. But if I know stoners, you guys aren't really that much in a hurry, are you? Yeah, I'm waiting for you guys to answer the question. So, no, there was no question. Not that I remember. There we go. All right, there's your joint. Actually, my joint. But it's our joint now. I'm going to get to smoke it, but you guys get to watch and record it over and over and over and watch me smoke it if you want. I know that's what I'm going to do. That's what I always do is I cut this part out and watch myself smoke weed when I don't have any. Okay, that's not true. I never not have any weed. Yay, civil disobedience. Nail you the roach. That'd be funny. Yeah. I wish I had some dabs, actually. Do them occasionally. Okay. Back to the bullshit, which is pretty much everything that prevents marijuana from being legal. And another person who agrees with that opinion happens to be Houston Police Chief, who calls the drug war a miserable failure and says feds need to lead reform. I'm just going to have a sip of my mocha here. Got a new machine upstairs in the back. I'm not sure if I like it or not. It's not a bad mocha, but it's not a great mocha. I always go to Our Town, which is a cafe on Broadway and Kingsway, if you're in Vancouver, and they make the best mochas in the world. And now they have dark chocolate mochas too, but I don't like them as much as the milk chocolate mochas. So if you're looking for a mocha, I definitely recommend you check it out and see if you like it, because I know I love it. What were we talking about again? Oh yeah, marijuana. Okay, right. Houston police chief calls drug war a miserable failure, says feds need to lead reform. The drug war is a miserable failure, and the federal government needs to take the lead on reforming marijuana policy, Houston Police Chief Charles McClelland said Friday in a radio interview. Most of us understand, we do believe, those of us are law enforcement and executives, that the war on drugs, the 1980 drug policies, was a miserable failure. There's no doubt about that, McClelland said to Dean Becker, host of Cultural Baggage, a radio show focused on the war on drugs. Law enforcement needs to find out the most efficient and effective ways to keep communities safe, McClelland said. In order to do that, we have to think differently about crime, crime prevention, drug rehabilitation, substance abuse, mental illness. There's a whole host of things that we need to treat differently than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. McClelland is the police chief of a city that's home to more than 2 million people and is the fourth most populous city in the U.S., behind New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. The drug war, he said, has disproportionately criminalized a certain segment of our population, namely minority young men. It has a trickle-down effect that a lot of young men who are minorities in their early 20s have a felony conviction on their resume, and now they're unemployable. And we wonder why they don't have jobs. They're not working. They're not contributing to society in a productive way. But we've put them in a position to where the odds are stacked against them. Good for him to speak out like that. Colorado okays marijuana credit union. Colorado's marijuana businesses have a cash flow problem. Too much cash is flowing and they've nowhere to put it. Most banks refuse to work with marijuana businesses, which are legal in Colorado but remain illegal at the federal level. Now, a credit union aimed specifically towards the cannabis industry hopes to offer a solution. The Fourth Corner Credit Union hopes to open its doors within weeks in Denver, offering to accept cash deposits and to permit members to make electronic transfers for payroll and rent, and to buy supplies. "We are on the 1-yard line," said Mark Mason, an attorney advising the credit union's 9 founders. Colorado's banking regulators granted Fourth Corner a charter on November 19th, and now the union is waiting for the Federal Reserve to issue it a master account number, which would give it access to the country's electronic banking system. The credit union believes it will get the account number without a fight because the Federal Reserve must give out numbers to organizations that have been granted state charters. And despite marijuana remaining illegal on the federal level, Colorado's banking regulators say they're respecting their state's laws by approving Fourth Corner. The credit union still needs insurance and to sign a lease before opening. Nevada measure is the first marijuana legalization initiative to qualify for the 2016 ballot. Yesterday, a Nevada initiative became the first marijuana legalization measure to qualify for the 2016 ballot. Nevada Secretary of State Ross Miller said the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol had submitted more than enough valid signatures to submit its initiative to voters in November 2016, assuming that the state legislature does not act on the issue before then. Like Colorado's Amendment 64, the initiative to regulate and tax marijuana would make it legal for adults 21 or older to possess up to an ounce, grow up to 6 plants at home, and transfer up to an ounce at a time to other adults without remuneration. It says remuneration. I'm not sure which one it is, or if remuneration actually exists. But I think we get the meaning. The initiative charges that State Department of Taxation with licensing and regulating marijuana producers, distributors, and retailers. It imposes a 15% excise tax on the fair market value of marijuana sold by growers. PTSD and pot. The fight to get veterans some weed. Doctors and soldiers are fighting for medical marijuana for post-traumatic stress. American soldiers and veterans diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder are often given a duffel bag of drugs, from antidepressants like Zoloft and Paxil to any number of highly addictive opioids. Doctors who work with these soldiers in Veterans Affairs clinics are encouraged to prescribe such medications, and any thought of prescribing alternative medicine that has not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration is generally forbidden. But some doctors break the chain. Sue Sisley is a psychiatrist who has worked with veterans for 20 years. While she has never smoked marijuana herself, she's heard how it can work from some of her patients who use it on their own to treat PTSD. Nobody is claiming it's a cure, but they report that they have successfully been managing their symptoms, she says. Sisley was set to begin studying the benefits of using medical marijuana to treat symptoms of PTSD at the University of Arizona until she was fired in July, which she suspects happened for political reasons. Sisley has now been nominated for a $2 million grant by Colorado's Medical Marijuana Scientific Advisory Council to fund her triple-blind study into how marijuana can help treat PTSD. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's Health Board will approve or deny the grant on December 17th. Sisley hopes to treat half of the 76 veterans participating in the study in Arizona, as well as cooperating with doctors at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore for the other half. Johns Hopkins has a long history of doing high-quality marijuana research, she says. Even so, the university has thus far only looked at possible harms of marijuana because that's the only thing the government wanted to hear about. And that actually looks like Gary Shandling, though I'm sure it's a very upset soldier. But don't you think it looks like Gary Shandling? I think it does. DC legalization still alive? The Democrats think so. Despite the language Republicans managed to include in the omnibus federal spending bill interfering with the District of Columbia's right to set its own marijuana policies, several leading Democrats say that the Initiative 71 Marijuana Possession and Cultivation Legalization Initiative is still alive. A close reading of the relevant language in the bill shows that while it would block the District Council from enacting a pending bill to tax and regulate marijuana, it would not undo DC's decriminalization law. The language around Initiative 71 is less clear, but Democrats involved with the negotiations say it is clear that the legislative intent of the rider in question was to allow both decriminalization and Initiative 71 to stand. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, Representative Eleanor Holmes Horton, who represents D.C., Representative Jose Serrano, the ranking member of the House Appropriations Subcommittee that funds D.C., Representative Nina Lowey, the ranking Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, and others, thank goodness, have said that the D.C. rider allows Initiative 71 to stand. The D.C. government is blocked from enacting any new marijuana law reforms, but it is free to implement and carry out reforms that have already been enacted. Initiative 71 was enacted on November 4th when 70% of D.C. voters approved it, said Bill Piper, director of the National Affairs for Drug Policy Alliance. Voters wanted to reduce racial disparities in the criminal justice system and focus police resources on serious violent crime. The will of the people should stand. While Initiative 71 won't take effect until after the Council transmits it to Congress in January and it goes through an administrative 30-day review period, it has very clearly already been enacted by the voters. The Drug Policy Alliance is urging the D.C. City Council to transmit Initiative 71 to Congress as soon as it convenes in January. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario reviews medical marijuana policies. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario are currently reviewing the new federal regulations on medical cannabis. Since the MMPR makes doctors the sole gatekeepers, their interest in cannabis has soared. After some initial reviews, a draft policy has been developed entitled Marijuana for Medical Purposes. It sets out the guidelines for physicians who prescribe dried cannabis. With the policy draft now published on their website, the college is inviting feedback from medical professionals, healthcare organizations, other professionals, and the public. Jason Wilcox, founding director of Cannabis in Canada and co-founder of the MMAR Coalition Against Repeal, made the following statement concerning the draft. We're making history right now with the Coalition's restraining order on the federal government. For the first time in this country's history, doctors are looking into the medical benefits of cannabis and are legally prescribing it. We, the first federally licensed producers and consumers, have to make our voices heard. We need to tell our stories and explain how cannabis has improved our lives. If we stay silent, the Canadian public will be at the mercy of the anti-cannabis propaganda the federal government is determined to push and enforce via the MMPR. Already, some of the feedback has been negative, with certain physicians still completely unaware of cannabis's medical benefits. Whoa, it's the sunshine brighting on me. I hope That's not too bright. We're almost done anyway. Congress budget deal curbs federal medical marijuana hemp enforcement. Federal funds couldn't be used to go after medical marijuana laws in states where it's legal, and hemp, too. In a deal hammered out with Tuesday evening, the leaders of the House and Senate Appropriations Committees agreed on a budget bill that includes a measure curbing Justice Department's enforcement efforts in states where medical marijuana is legal. The measure, in form of an amendment offered by Representative Dana Rohrabacher, passed the House back in May. The bill includes similar language barring the use of Justice Department funds to interfere with hemp research authorized under the already approved Agricultural Act of 2014. The hemp industry hasn't responded yet, but medical marijuana supporters are pleased. This is great news for medical marijuana patients all across the country, said Representative Sam Farr, one of the co-authors of the House measure. This amendment protects patients while the federal government catches up with the views of the American people. Patients will have access to the care legal in their state without fear of federal prosecution. And our federal dollars will be spent more wisely on fighting actual crimes and not wasted going after patients. The relevant section of the bill, Section 538, lists all the states that have some form of legalized medical marijuana and says, none of the funds made available in the Act to the Department of Justice may be used to prevent such states from implementing their own state laws and that authorize the use of prescription distribution. Not again. It was Kevin. He came in and distracted me. None of the funds made available in this Act to the Department of Justice may be used to prevent such states from implementing their own state laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of medical marijuana. You try reading for like 40 minutes. And finally today, Obama supports Washington DC marijuana legalization, but will block reforms anyway. U.S. President Barack Obama supports legalizing marijuana in Washington, D.C., but will sign a government bill blocking marijuana reforms in the district, according to a White House spokesman. We do not believe Congress should spend a lot of time interfering with the ability of the citizens of the District of Columbia to make decisions on how they should govern their community, Secretary Josh Earnest told reporters at a White House press conference. The president believes on principle that members of Congress shouldn't be interfering in this way. Despite the supportive lip service, Earnest said Obama would sign Congress's funding bill that contains a rider blocking funding to future marijuana reforms in the district. The president supports the passage of this compromise proposal and would sign it if it arrives on his desk, Earnest said. More than 70% of voters in Washington, D.C. approved the Initiative 71 ballot measure in the November election that would legalize possession of up to 2 ounces of pot and the home cultivation of 6 plants. Residents of Washington, D.C., unfortunately, do not have representation in the United States Congress, leading some to criticize the actions of lawmakers as undemocratic. Yes, well, it seems pretty undemocratic to me, too. So, here's the other copy. I will read them again. Why not? Health? No. Okay. Well, that's it. That's the Stoner Report. Glad you could join me. I'm going to try to do this every week, but like I said, I have 2 jobs, and it's a lot of hard work, but I don't mind. Glad to be here. Glad you could be here. I'm Marius, Associate Editor of Cannabis Culture Magazine, wishing you a wonderful weekend, and bid you adieu.